Hey there guys, this is Flamzeron, aka YouTube's Tosuke. Well, Negima has officially concluded. Volume 38, at least in Japan and North America. I don't know if in Europe. I don't even know how big it is in Europe. If there are any European listeners or viewers at this point, or you can say either, because I doubt many people are actually watching this video while listening. If there are any European viewers, is Negima big? Anyway, I just wanted to do a video kind of wrapping up Negima a little bit, since I've been talking about it a good bit, since that was the big thing I was reading, even really before Dragon Ball. So it's kind of funny to pick up the series like when I'm in like high school, and then finish it when I've finished my second year of college. It's quite the adventure. So I figured I'd just kind of do a quick video, just sort of wrapping everything up, giving my thoughts on the ending, really the last two volumes, and just like favorite characters, different things, what I'm going to do from here in terms of manga and Negima and all that good junk. I will warn you that there will be spoilers of the last two volumes. The last two volumes. So keep that in mind if you're all like, I don't like spoilers. Fuck you, Tosuke. More like Toss Gay. No. Oh, and don't call me that in the comments. I mean, I guess you can. Not like I can do anything about it. But, yeah, so I'll just start off with just a quick recap of the last two volumes. Essentially, Negi defeats Fate, that douchebag I hated so much. He's all like, I defeated you. But, and also he tries to get Fate on his side. It's revealed that Fate is again, spoilers, is like a defect of like someone from the previous war. They got like split into like 3 to like 5 people or something. I'm not entirely sure, and it's been a while, so. But regardless, he's one of the replicas of this person, and he's also a defect. So he's actually not as powerful as the other ones, but the other ones, they come up, he joins Negi to help fight. Negi's trying, essentially, the magical world's energy is being depleted somehow. I guess you could say it's some sort of metaphor for global warming or something. And so they're going to like take over Earth and take its energy and whatnot. And Negi has a plan. Well, let's just do a thing where I think they're trying to get something from Mars. I'm going entirely off of memory of this, and I don't have any notes. Plus, not to mention the plot of Negima, I don't exactly completely understand anyway. I mean, it's a good series. It's not just a harem show. I mean, before anyone asks, I'm probably not going to read Love Hina. At least not reading Love Hina because I read Negima. I'll probably get into Love Hina in some other way. But, anywho, so essentially Negi has like this big plan on, he thinks he can save the world. He's not entirely sure, but he's going to go with it. And Fate's like, oh, well, you've defeated me, and so I'll join up with you and help you with your thing. And so that's essentially the end of the magical world section. Fate is defeated. He joins up with the good guys, and yeah, the world is saved, or at least the magical world is saved. So, and then Negi becomes like a national hero, kind of like his daddy when you think about it. In fact, there's like, oh, it's Negi's daddy. I don't remember if they make any correlation to the fact that the guy in the... I think they do. I think they kind of put 2 and 2 together. But anyway, the next volume is the final volume, like 37, is where they start to kind of do all like the wrapping up. Like it's almost like if you've read the Prydain Chronicles, it's like Taran Wanderer, where everything's just kind of wrapped up, all loose ends. Or at least they're starting to, like Negi fights Evangeline one more time. I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, I mean, she was his last teacher. I mean, he's actually kind of similar. Negi's actually kind of similar to Goku in that he has like 5 teachers. And he takes up different ideas and styles, and he gets, Magic Erebia, essentially the magical Kaioken that he does, which he then infuses with his. So he kind of makes it his own, which is kind of cool. Like unlike Goku, he just kind of takes what he learns and just uses it. I mean, he does have his own techniques, like the fucking Dragon Fist and whatnot. I guess technically Dragon Punch, but and they duke it out. I kind of don't really exactly see. I kind of see it just because Evangeline. She in Volume 3, she may have not been using her full power. I mean, this is another one of those where it's with action and like fighting and whatnot, but there's no like actual like power level. Like, and I like that better because then it's more of a idea of skill. I mean, it does confuse people. Like, wait, why is this little kid beating up this vampire chick who's probably like 100 years old? But it's more about him catching her off guard. He tricks her. That's essentially how he wins. And so she may have not been using her full power. So I get that. And so then they duke it out, Evangeline and Negi. And it doesn't really end on I think they stop, or it's more of like just like a sparring thing. I mean, Negi, I think, can keep up with Evangeline at this point, and she's using her full power. I mean, you could argue that her power's been locked up, but I don't think that's the case. Because, I mean, it's been a while. Surely her power has started to come back, or she's learned to build it back up. Which would, in theory, make her even stronger, because then she'd have her old powers and her new stuff to kind of build upon, to fuse and make her even more powerful than she already is. So they duke it out, and then there's a little festival and shit, and Negi is gonna go off and work on his little thing. Like they're getting ready to where he and of course Asuna, who's revealed to be a princess of the magical world. Spoilers again. Heck, I think it's even I think like they try to hint that Asuna and Negi are like just really indirectly related on, because they definitely have a brother and sister thing going on, which makes it really weird when they like smooch and whatnot. It's like, the fuck? Like in the last volume, before she goes, they do like the girl who left through time kind of thing, where they're just sort of chilling in like this one little area. And then she kisses him, is like, this is a goodbye kiss from your big sister's. Like, a kiss on the cheek would have been perfect, I think, because then it would have shown that they're really close, but they're not intimate. Like, they're not, like, romantically inclined or whatever. So I thought that was weird. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, though. And so Asuna has to, quote-unquote, go to sleep for, like, 130 years. Not entirely sure why. She's supposed to, like, do service, and, of course, there's interesting point later on. And, Negi promises her that he will be alive around that. And she's, of course, worried, Negi included, I mean, because she's they're not gonna live that long, all her friends. So she's worried that she's gonna go into the future and not see her friends. And she's gonna miss her friends. So it's really sad, because they're essentially saying goodbye forever. It's not like going to a trip or going off to college where you're just saying goodbye for like a moment in time and then you come back. Which brings up another point I'll have to bring up later on. But so all that, essentially, Negi and Asuna are trying to like finish up stuff before they go, and class 3A, I can't remember, 3A I think is the class. Yeah, it's 3A, isn't it? Yeah, it's 3A. I'm pretty sure the class is 3A. They're graduating from high school. For those of you who don't know about Japanese high school, they do year round, but they only do 3 years as opposed to 4, like America does. So they've got their graduation coming up, and Asuna is also a little sad because even though she doesn't act like it, I mean, she's gonna miss her graduation, so she has to get her diploma early. They have like a makeshift ceremony with her, Takahata, and Negi, where they give her diploma, and then of course all that. But before all that goes on, there's a big sort of part which is actually kind of interesting when you think about it. If you're thinking about this from a conflict sort of standpoint, because every story kind of has a conflict, you know, man versus man, man versus society, man versus anus, you know. In this case, it's Negi versus his entire class. They've gotten fed up with him being a little pimp and like stealing the lips of all the girls, including the one lesbian, and not really acting up on their feelings. I mean, there are only a handful of them that actually kind of like him, like, you know, Makie and whatnot, and fucking Nodoka and Yue. Almost forgot her fucking name. But yeah, I'm going entirely off of memory of this. So there are only like a handful of girls that even really like. Oh, and Yue gets her memory back, by the way, which I'm glad, because that would have pissed me off if she didn't. But she keeps all her old stuff, obviously. I mean, there's no like, it's not like you're overwriting something. And even if you were, you still kind of keep the old data, if it's, especially since it's a progression kind of thing. But yeah, so she gets her shit back and whatnot. Anywho, and all the girls are they just kind of want to know answers. They want to know who he likes. And there are plenty of girls, or Asuna's on his side, obviously, because they're like a partner kind of thing. And you know, Chachamaru, the robot chick, she ends up deciding to work for... Oh, she's also another girl who likes Negi. Of course, they set up a business relationship, so... Plus, she just likes getting wound up. That's essentially her version of Negi jerking her off. Basically, that's basically what it is. Or that's an approximation of it. I mean, there's probably something more with it, but... Anywho. So, they're all a little upset, the other girls. But Chachamaru, Kunel Sanders, who I still think has a funny name, even after all these years, Takahata, and Asuna. And I think there's one more person. They all kind of try to help defend Negi. I don't think they know. In fact, I know Asuna doesn't, because he whispers in her ear the truth later on. And so they all kind of try to get the truth out, the other girls, I mean. And it's interesting to see them defeat these really tough, these characters who are supposed to be really powerful. I guess it's more of like just working as a team. And like I said, it's essentially Negi versus his class. So it's really interesting, and of course they eventually kind of corner him, and they get to a point to where he's really close to friggin' spilling the beans, and then finally some of the girls are like, you know what, this isn't right, we shouldn't force him to tell us who he likes, we'll figure it out on our own, either through rejection or if he ever decides to actually tell, then fantastic. So they give up on that because, one girl decides that she convinces another girl, she convinces another girl. They all just like, okay, we'll just kind of leave them alone for the time being. Then it comes to the point where Asuna has to leave. Like, her best friends come up, and of course, Setsuna actually gets really upset over that. Actually kind of surprised me because I thought I remembered Konoka and Asuna being not romantically together before you twist my words, listener. Like, they were just like the two close friends at the time. They lived together. Setsuna, and Konoka live together, so I guess that's just sort of where that goes. But, so Setsuna's very upset and shite, and then, of course, Asuna leaves to go into her little sleep thing, and they show a little interesting approximation where they show her in her younger form, which I think is supposed to represent her too, because she's essentially working with, like, two personalities, She's got, like, it's kind of interesting. It's sort of like the UA situation with the whole memory loss, and I think that's what I don't know if there's any theme behind UA getting memory loss, but yeah, so it's a nice little metaphor for her two personality. Like, I guess you could say she has a split personality. And I think that's supposed to be represented by her two different eye colors. I don't know if her younger version had two different eye colors or had one eye color. It's hard to tell, but anyway. And so, Asuna, she wakes up in the future, because again, she just went to sleep for like 130 years. It turns out she ends up sleeping for an extra 2 years, which, the further away you get, it kind of starts to mess things up. I mean, and so she tries to find her best friend, the class rep. I think her name's Ayaka. I can't remember. The long-haired girl, the blonde long-haired chick who is revealed to be Asuna's, like, best friend. Like, their BFF. But, and then she's like, okay, I need to find peeps. She ends up finding Ayaka's great-great-granddaughter, which that does a little bit. And so they find her, and then it's like, here, where's Negi? And so they find Negi, and he's dead. He's been dead for like 2 years, I think. So she missed her mark, and that really upsets her because she was too late and whatnot. And so she just kind of stands in that little graveyardic area. I mean, it is a graveyard, I think, because there are more than one tombstones, because, you don't just bury someone off just exclusively in one area. It's like, oh no, that's the only person who can be there, and she digs up something, a time capsule that Ayaka and her buried a long time ago, which apparently gets filled with more stuff, interestingly enough. And because they dig it up in the present just to kind of wrap things up. I mean, there's a lot of, like, goodbye moments in 38 before they start to kind of wrap things up, but, And then, while Asuna's having a little moment, I was like, oh, I miss my friends, I want to go back. Evangeline and Chao Ling Xin show up. Because, remember, Chao Ling Xin is from the future. She's hinted at being Negima's descendant, or at Negi's descendant, but we're not entirely sure, like, who he hooked up with, because that kind of opens up things. I mean, you'd have to kind of think about things a little bit. I don't really see any real clear. I guess, oh, maybe Hakase. I don't know. I mean, the other one would be Ku Fu or whatever the Chinese chick is. Can't remember her name. The girl who teaches Negima Kung Fu. So he can. I don't remember. I think it's so he can fight in like the tournament. Either that or so he can fight Kotaro or something. But so Evangeline and Xiaoling Shinsho, who are both in their school uniforms, which Xiaoling Shin I can kind of understand because she's probably a student there now, and they probably haven't changed their uniforms. I don't know why. Or I don't know. I mean, they're nice uniforms. That's kind of the whole reason why I got into the show in the series in the first place, because I saw the uniforms. I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys know me by now. If you've been watching me for a while, watching my videos, listening to what I had to say, you know how I am with school uniforms. You know they kind of make, they're like lesbians for me. They kind of make or break my interest in a series. Not really break, but they get me interested in a series. And then, of course, once I get more into it, I get into the story and whatnot. And they don't. It's one of those things where they don't really tell you everything, but essentially. Oh wait, I kind of didn't finish my thought. I found because you would think that with Negi being dead, the whole spell thing would be gone, like her curse that she can't really leave the school. Of course, wearing the uniform is at this point a choice for her, and she's probably used to it by now. So why she would choose to wear, not to mention wear the tie too, because she wears her uniform with like a little ribbon thing. She's one of the few who actually accessorizes a little bit outside of the uniform. So she kind of just fixes it herself. But now she wears the tie. I guess just because that's more official and more business-like. Because at the graduation ceremony, they all wear tie. And heck, Asuna she wears her school uniform, but she wears the tie. So I guess it's just more of an official thing. I mean, I guess ties are more official or something. I'm not entirely sure, to be perfectly honest. But anywho, essentially, Asuna is able to come back to the present time. And so we get a future Evangeline coming in too, which is kind of funny because you see two Evangelines. Because Evangeline's there as well, like in the little moment of Asuna leaving. She, Negi, Setsuna, and Konoka all stay. I think Evangeline's maybe there just because she trained Asuna a little bit and made her wear Gothic Lolita clothes. Which is kind of funny because I feel like Asuna's like the only one who actually doesn't like the uniform. Like, when she's looking at her Pactio, she's like, I wouldn't be caught dead in that outfit. But she's wearing the uniform. And, when Evangeline makes her wear the Gothic Lolita outfit that she usually wears when she turns into her other form, she's like, oh, I hate frilly clothes like that. And I just find it really interesting that Asuna seems to be the only one who's not really into that kind of style. Maybe everyone else is. I mean, with anime and manga, you don't really see too many characters hate their uniform or hating on their uniform. I think it's because for them it is a bit of a choice. In that with high school, you have to take a test and get into it. Like, you have a choice of what high school you want to go to, and you have to pass a test. And I think they look at your grades as well. So it's more of like, okay, you got into the school you really like, so you're kind of proud to wear the uniform or something. I don't know. it's a thing. And essentially, their reasoning for Asuna coming back is that she's already spent her sleeping for like 130 years, so she can come back. She already like did her job, so she can come back. It wasn't like a thing where she was like stuck in that world. That was literally their argument, that she had slept for the 100 years, she saw things and whatnot. And the reason why they let and you might be thinking, well, that's kind of a weird plot device to bring her back. I mean, well, the reason why they do that, and also the reason why the girls kind of give up on Negi, on trying to figure out who Negi likes, is because they've been affecting the future, so it's currently a blank slate. So Asuna, it was more really her seeing what the future would be if they weren't actually doing what they were doing. Right now they're trying to change the future. It's more of like a, we control our destinies, yeah, kind of thing. So it's one of those kind of things where it's not like the way time travel in Negima works more like the way time travel would, where not like with Dragon Ball, where when you travel through time, you're just essentially just making a parallel universe, in which at this point it's really up to you whether or not you just want to change the future in general, or if you just want to kind of fix things. But so she comes back, and with her new knowledge, she's probably able to sort of set the future right, and so they kind of just celebrate and like, yay. And then that part of the manga ends, and then we get into an epilogue where different school entirely, and there's a monster going around taking girls' underwear and fondling them. And so they go to like this detective service, which happens to be run by Yue, an older 18 or so Yue. This is a 7-year gap. So, and then Yue agrees to help them. They fight the monster, and then Negi shows up in an older form. He's actually older now. He's grown a bit. And then it turns out that they're having a big reunion, or they're having a little small reunion with some of their friends. And so then they meet up with everyone, and they meet the old guild that they were part of. Like, Nagi's actually alive at this point. They actually bring him back. He was frozen. It's kind of like, I know I keep comparing Negima to different stuff, but it's kind of like in Saint Seiya Omega with Seiya and where he's doing. I'm not going to spoil it since that's relatively new, but if you've been watching Saint Seiya Omega, you should know what I'm talking about. If you're up to season 2. So it's like a little meetup and whatnot, and so Nagi gets to kind of meet the new guild that sort of took over where they left off and whatnot. And they all meet up, and then they decide, hey, let's have a big reunion with everyone. So they call everyone up just to have like a big reunion, and the volume ends with them sort of planning their little get together. They even call up Asuna, and they also show like a little tidbits of each of the class members, like what they're doing. Like Asuna does like her princess stuff. The pink-haired girl with the glasses who likes cosplay, she becomes like a complete shut-in, but she helps Negi with like, assuming with computer stuff. So she gets paid and whatnot. Nodoka and Yue, they both kind of, they work together. I mean, but Yue, besides doing her little school business thing where she, like a little detective monster magic thing and whatnot, of course, Mizore and Kotaro get married, as do Asuna, yeah, as do Setsuna and Konoka. In fact, that one, I think it's weird because it's like, oh, in 2017 they get married. Konoka gets married, and then next to Setsuna's like, in 2017 she settles down and gets married, and it's like, do you really want to play with, like, is homosexuality really that big of a deal? Like, is there really any point to leaving it open? Like, do you really not want to be that conclusive? I just think that's really kind of weird. Like, what's the point to it? But so, and they kind of hinted it further because the Konoka and Setsuna's little epilogue biography is right next to each other, and Setsuna's holding Konoka in her arms, like a sort of in like the marriage kind of way. So it's pretty clear whether or not they got married or not, I think. And I think they just got married. Setsuna, she always kind of had feelings for Konoka, and then Konoka, she starts to develop feelings. Either that or she was just, I feel like she's always kind of had feelings. Or she's always like really liked her a lot, and then it just turns into love. Like, in fact, I think the whole reason why she did the Pacquiao thing was just so she could kiss her. Like, I think that's literally the entire reason why. So, and apparently in the future, everyone likes to wear shirts and ties. Apparently. I mean, I know they're all working, and some of them actually doing, like, business-like stuff. But, you know. I just find that kind of interesting. More of just, like, a comment on Ken Akamatsu's choice for attire. Because he did vary up their styles a bit. With different clothes styles, which for my stories, for my comic, I want to do that with at least 2 of them. Or vary it a little. And by a little, I mean like 4 or 5 outfits. Or how many I actually have, because I'm just going off of memory of stuff that's supposed to just come naturally because it's my story. Anyway. And so, that's essentially how Negima ends. Negi, he becomes a master mage. I'd argue that he's even more powerful than his dad. And I kind of like how Nagi and Negi look different. Like Nagi's obviously designed to look like Negi. But Negi at least looks different enough. And I actually prefer it when he's in his, like, older, like, 15-year-old self. I mean, at this point, he's, like, 17, so. With everyone being, like, 20 or so. 20 or 21 or something. So. That's all then. Evangeline, the whole little curse thing of her being cursed to just stay in the school grounds has been removed. Or stay in really the entire just town. That gets removed, but she sticks around. From what I can tell. She doesn't wear the uniform anymore either. I mean, she graduates, technically, and all the students kind of graduate, and even Xiaoling Shen kind of comes back to graduate with them since she was part of the class. As does the fucking ghost. Which is weird. And it's funny too, because she still wears her old uniform, and at that point it's like, is it even really a uniform, or is it just something she wears? Like, is that really a dated design of uniforms? I mean, but yeah, so Negima, it concluded. Favorite character? Probably, that's a tough. I like Asuna. I don't like how they kind of take Asuna and Negi into like a sexual sort of sibling thing. I wish they would just kept to like just a sibling thing. It kind of goes into that later on. I also like Evangeline, just because Evangeline's awesome. I have a thing for blonde lolis, I think. And like arrogant blonde lolis who are proud. Or really just blonde, arrogant anime girls. I don't know. I'm like, you know, Mina Tepish from The Dance of the Vampire Bund. I kind of had she was interesting. She kind of got on my nerves too, but Setsuna I like just because she uses a sword and she's a lesbian. Akko I like just because as far as appearance goes, she was probably my favorite. And Makie was also nice. Like, I like a lot of the characters. Favorite guy's probably Kotaro, if not for Nagi or Negi when he's all big boy and shit. I don't like Fate. I'm just gonna go ahead and say I don't really like Fate. And I just didn't really like how like he just seemed so overpowering, and like he just seemed like he was just stronger than everyone. Of course, Negi, I'm sure. I mean, he defeats him, so I mean it's clear to show where the power is, you know. Favorite arc? I like the Magical World arc. I actually was probably my favorite, and I think that's where the show kind of gets into more of just an act, like just a shonen show than just a harem show. Like if you're thinking about reading Negima, or you're not, or you're trying to ignore because it's like, oh, it's another harem show. Well, it starts off that way, and it may seem that way, but there's more to it than that. Like it's not like Love Hina, where it's literally just a harem show and it just has shenanigans and whatnot, where all the hijinks ensue. I really like the Magical World stuff. Maybe just because that one seemed a bit longer and it's more recent. And plus, like, the students, some of them, the ones who are actually there, learn like fighting stuff and like different support stuff, so they actually can have some use to them. And Yue, of course, she loses her memory and she thinks she's a student at somewhere else, so she actually learns like some fighting ability in general. I mean, she tries to learn magic beforehand, but she also like learns some stuff. And Negi and Kitaro get pretty tough, and Evangeline, she comes in to help. And of course, the three of them kind of train in like a hyperbolic time chamber like area. And Negi and Kotaro, or whatever, they get really strong, and then they're able to beat people. And of course, the whole Fate stuff. My favorite part of the Magical World arc is probably the tournament stuff. I don't know. I really like tournament stories. Like I like Beyblade for that reason. I like my favorite section of Dragon Ball, like just the first part of Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball, is the World Martial Arts stuff and the training with Goku and Krillin in the beginning. You know, I really like just sort of competition like settings and trying to reach a certain kind of goal. Like I like Monster Rancher because, you know, we're trying to find the Phoenix, you know. And then it's like, let's look for the Phoenix's soul, which I am aware that it's coming out on DVD by Discotech at some point. I'm going to get both the English and the Japanese. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, and I also pre-ordered Saint Seiya and whatnot, the movies, and Tales of Exilia, obviously. And another thing that I feel like, because, you know, they're on, like, it's during their summertime, so the students don't wear their uniforms. And it's almost kind of refreshing because, you know, seeing characters wear the same thing over and over, even if some of them even if they vary it up a little bit with ribbons instead of ties, or in Evangeline's case, just a fucking string thing. They wear something different. You know, they just wear like regular stuff, which is kind of cool. And it's funny because then when they get back to the regular world, they start wearing like their uniforms again. It's like, oh, I was so used to them not wearing their uniforms. Why are you going back to their uniforms? It's weird. It's fucking weird. No. But you know, it's really kind of funny hearing that for me because I'm so school uniform and I'm stimulated that way. I am a guy, so I'm stimulated a little bit more visually by the sexy stuff. But then when I get into it, I get more to the story, and then it's like, oh yeah, they're not wearing their uniforms. Like, why are you going back to your uniforms? Ugh. And there are some cases where I feel like a school uniform will actually hurt someone's appearance because it looks too formal, and it looks like it kind of constricts them a little bit. Not like actually really uncomfortable, but just sort of like it's kind of holding stuff in, if that makes any sense. Or, I don't know, I guess it really depends on how it's worn. But what else? I mean, favorite volume, probably besides the Magical World Tournament arc, I was like volume 3, if not because I like the uniform, because it's like the vest, but it's a long sleeve shirt, so it's a little cool, but not completely. Plus, Evangeline shows up. There's some nakedness that shows up in Evangeline, kind of does her thing, or I don't know. They reveal a little bit more about Evangeline, even show her putting on the uniform for the first time, and then Nagi laughing at her because she looks like a little doll. And of course, like I said, she probably got used to it. I mean, after wearing it for so long, you'd have to get used to it. Plus, after washing it for a while, it gets softer and more comfy, and then, it becomes just natural for you, I guess. I mean, like I said, with Japanese schools, you wanted to get into that school, you took the test and you got in, and you want to go. I mean, I guess if you want to change your mind and say, I don't want to go, then you don't have to. But I mean, if you're choosing to go, if you want to go, then probably should get used to the uniform and whatnot. And anime likes to kind of make fun of the idea, like, oh, I want to go to that school because it has a cute uniform. But that's that. What else do I need to? Actually, Volume 3 was the volume that I actually started reading. I had Volume 1 and 2, and I think I got them at the same time, and I kind of just looked through them, and I read a little bit of them, but I didn't actually start reading it just regularly until Volume 3. And then I started picking up the series from there, and I went back and read Volumes 1 and 2 while I was waiting for... Because I got to a point where I started to catch up, and so I got to a point where I was just reading it sort of like on the bi-monthly release schedule they were doing, that Del Rey was doing, and then Kodansha took over, and they actually told you when it was coming out. So, and they also kind of fixed up on some translation stuff. And looking back at Del Rey, I feel like they didn't do well with... it's almost like my argument with American comics. Like, I feel like a dialogue it's too it's not diversified, I guess. Like, it just seems just kind of like certain characters who may not necessarily be very articulate are pretty articulate due to the way the comic's written. And that's what I like about manga. I feel like, with one, just because the lack of color makes it easier to read, and two, the idea that that a character personality tends to kind of come out a little bit more in dialogue, which I like, because it's nice to because there's plenty of ways you can bring out your personality. I mean, not just with clothes and like what you do, but also what you say. I mean, there are just so many different ways you can bring out your personality. Dialogue being one of them, if we're comparing humans to characters. But so I do like that Kodansha kind of made everyone talk a little more naturally. But I feel like with the newer stuff, they kind of... I just found some newer stuff just kind of hard to figure. I guess just because it just kind of went a little over my head with the story and whatnot. But, anywho. I think that's really all I can say about Negima. I really liked it. Again, if you are worried about getting into it because it seems like a harem show, it starts off that way initially, but there's more to it than that. In fact, I don't think it was intended to be a harem show at all. I think it just was set up that way. In fact, you could see, like, that might have been how Ken Akamatsu critiqued it himself. He was like, okay, so I'm writing it like this, like, it seems kind of like a harem, how can I make it different, you know? So that's just my perspective. So I actually really like it. And it's really weird to see it end, even if I did get into it a little late. But, and I believe this is Ken Akamatsu's last manga. I mean, he did say that it was going on a temporary end, which I think is weird. I think what he meant by that was that the main story wasn't going to continue, but the franchise was going to continue. Because there is Negiho, which started out was like a kindergarten version of Negima. Then there was Negima Neo, which was like a more shoujo version of the story, I think. And then, of course, there's the live-action TV show. There are the OVAs, the 2 animes. There was the movie. There are the games. So there's a lot of different Negima stuff. And, of course, he like to all the people who worked on all the Negima stuff, thank you, and like he cites that to the people who made the video game versions of the story, you've proven to me that video games like the easiest adaptation of the manga. He wants to go into editing too, so I don't know, maybe he's gonna pass on the torch. Negima does seem to become more of a franchise than Love Hina. Like Love Hina to me just seems like that classic show, this considered a classic that hardcore anime fans or older anime fans have watched. I did watch 2 episodes of Love Hina. It was okay, but not stellar. I just think I prefer Negima better. I'm not really into the first anime, especially considering I figured out how different they were. I don't really like it when shows differ from the source material. Like Dragon Ball is pretty close with a few changes, and of course the filler, and Saint Seiya, a lot of the changes come from designs, I think, and I actually prefer the anime designs of Saint Seiya than I do the manga. But speaking of which, what am I going to do with Negima? Because I definitely would like to see more. I'll probably get the summer and spring OVAs on DVD because I had them on my Xbox, but then no, you can't do it no more. So I'll probably get those. I don't know about the anime. I'm not entirely sure right now. I might watch the second episode of the first series and maybe watch a little bit of Negima with exclamation point and question mark, because I feel like that's going to be the one that, because at this point I don't want something that follows the story, but I don't want something to try to follow the story and then change it. I mean, with the anime, I am aware of what happens to Asuna. Instead of going to the future and sleeping, she dies, and then she comes back. So it's a similar it's a similar sort of idea of Asuna leaving and then coming back. It's like that, but it's just differently executed. So I don't really know. I kind of wish Funimation would license the OVAs in the new movie. But so I might watch Negima with the question mark at the end, just because I've heard that one's really different from the manga. If you know otherwise, let me know. I'm thinking about importing more Wii games, because we're getting to a point to where the Wii's going to kind of die off. I mean, and then be replaced with the Wii U, even though they're kind of marketing the Wii U as the new Wii. So I feel like it's trying to replace the Wii entirely, which means that, there won't be any more firmware updates that'll like delete your homebrew. So I'll probably do Gecko S, and I'm thinking about getting the Negima fighting game for the Wii, as well as maybe Tales of Graces, just for the sake of having the Japanese version on the Wii. Not going to play it that much, but we'll see. Definitely not Dawn of the New World, though, especially considering there are some rumors going around about that. But, so Negima, definitely want to have more to the story. I do think that the main story's done. I mean, they did pull a Dragon Ball where they had a little epilogue at the end with the characters in older forms. I mean, and showing off like what they're doing now. I don't think they're going to, because I mean, it kind of all wraps up. Like, at that point, it might actually turn into a harem thing, unless they decide to add in a new villain. I mean, and there's only so much you can do. Like, you get to a point to where there's only so much you can add in. I might try to kind of write my stories. Like, I know there's one where there's like just a big gap between the end of one part and then the beginning of another, so I can add in a lot of like stuff if I want to like continue it. It will be fixed in terms of how many I can put and what will happen at the end of like the last one, but yeah, I think I might. For my main story, will probably a manga, and with that I'll probably have to do a Japanese synonym or some, or pseudonym or whatever. I'll figure something out, and I'll probably let you know in some way. But anyway, other manga, I'm probably gonna go into Berserk and just kind of do that for a while and see how far I can probably just continue reading that, as far as like my actual one that I'm going to read, because there's reading and then there's collecting. I'm on volume 20, spoilers, where Guts is going through the pseudo eclipse during the fucking pagan arc, which I'm actually kind of hating because it's so grotesque and kind of gross. They do have a little bit of lesbian stuff in it, which was nice, and it was nice, all hot and sweaty and Guts is starting to kind of getting noticed by this other group of knights who end up joining him later on. So, and of course I'll be getting the movies, and of course they'll be doing adaptations of the other arcs later on. So I'm just gonna keep reading Berserk. I'm also trying to get Saint Seiya, the manga, just trying to collect that, because I do want to read all of it, and I also kind of want to have it as a backup just in case the rest of the anime doesn't get translated in some way, like released on DVD or something. I mean, I'm warming up to the idea of downloading the episodes, since it won't technically be illegal, but at that point. But you should still buy your anime DVDs and watch your stuff legally. And yes, I know I'm slightly being a hypocrite, but I'm doing it in terms of like what's been licensed and what's not. because if something hasn't been licensed, then it's technically not illegal because no company's losing money off of it, besides maybe the original Japanese people. So I don't know. It really depends. I mean, we're getting to a point to where companies are where we got Discotek trying to license more stuff. So we'll probably see some older anime start getting picked up. You know, and hopefully classic, the big name anime companies like Funimation and Viz and whatnot. Well, and apparently Aniplex is trying to get into dubbing. Well, what do you call it? We'll take note of like the older stuff and start licensing that as well. But yeah, collect Saint Seiya. Read at some point. The manga's not bad. It's definitely a little more grotesque than the anime. But unfortunately, the manga's using the Knights of the Zodiac terminology. Like, they use knights instead of saints. They call Jabu Jab. They call Saori Sienna. They call it Death Mask Mephisto, which, because for some reason the devil is not as bad as death. But, I mean, I see it from a youth standpoint, because not all children know that Mephistopheles is the devil. But so I'll be picking that up. It's only like, what, 26 volumes, so that's actually not too bad. Negima's like fucking 30, and Berserk's probably going to continue for like a long time. I'm probably going to read some other stuff as well. If you really want to know what kind of other comics I'm going to read, I want to try and get into some Batman stuff, and I'm going to try and do more Courtney Crumrin or whatever, because I'm heard that the series concluded, so I'm going to try and get the rest of those. I'm going to read this manga called Girlfriends, which is another lesbian one, just to get some nice lesbian in my manga collection. When I learn to read Japanese, I'll probably start reading more Japanese manga. Like, I know I want to do Saint Seiya Next Dimension when I finish Saint Seiya, and also Tales of Eternia, obviously, because I have the first volume. Like, I actually own the first volume in Japanese. I won it at an anime club competition freshman year, so I have that. Other stuff, I play around with other stuff like Fate Stay Night, Yu Yu Hakusho, Inuyasha, but I don't really know if I want to entirely. I'm thinking about doing Omamori Himari, just to kind of get that and sort of support that series, because I actually kind of like that series. It is a little cheesy and weird, but I do kind of want to give that a try. But yes, it is incredibly cheesy. Other than that, I can't really think of anything else. Right now, really, Berserk and Saint Seiya are really the only ones that I'm actually going to try to do and whatnot. I'm going to read Saint Seiya probably after Berserk, or when I get all the volumes, I'll probably tackle both series, or try like marathon Saint Seiya. I mean, but other than that, not really sure. I guess it's kind of fair, open. I mean, if you guys have any manga you want me to check out, let me know, and maybe I'll do a video on it, or maybe I'll hit you up and tell you, hey, this is what I thought about it. No scanlations, please, because I prefer to read manga in the actual physical book. Like, at this point, it's not just about supporting the official stuff. Like, I actually prefer to read the physical book. I don't really like scanlations that much. So, yeah, I guess that's that. This is Flamzeron, aka YouTube Sasuke, signing out. See you later, and may the good speed be with you. That was kind of lame.